hey everybody, welcome to Crossroads, our podcast. I'm here with the boys, Joseph Upton, James Vickers. They're joining us from cross country over here, and we got them on Skype right now. So, what's up, boys? How you doing?
Oh, doing great. How about you, man?
Pretty good. Excited. First ever podcast. Talk about some sports. Cause what else are you gonna do in the quarantine right now, right?
Yeah, sleep.
Sleep, yeah. For those of you, well, I guess none of you would know this, but so we were actually supposed to start this podcast about 2 hours ago, but Joe decided he was gonna pull an all-nighter and then fell asleep on us. So, but we're here
Joe, come
now.
on, man.
We're starting. We're excited. I'm excited. You guys excited?
Yeah, thrilled to be here.
I mean, we talk about
Be a
sports
fun
all the
time.
time, so yeah, man. I really hope our three viewers appreciate this, and by three viewers, I mean you, me, and
Uh,
yeah, exactly. Um,
That's good. Yeah.
But I think we got a fun show in store. Today we're gonna talk about the only thing we can talk about, which is NFL free agency. So we're gonna go into that, pick some
Well,
of
no,
our
I just saw a ESPN release. Apparently, they're airing live pickleball. Whatever
pickleball.
that
So
is.
maybe we'll break into some pickleball arguments later on. But we're gonna bring up some of the biggest signings, under the radar moves, which teams impressed us most, which teams we think did the worst during free agency, and we'll close up with a little bit of college basketball. So let's just get right into it. So,
All
biggest
right.
signings.
Crossroads Podcast.
Crossroads Podcast, brought to you by nobody. Um,
Nobody.
so, all right. I mean, start off with the biggest elephant in the room, Tom Brady, right? Got to be the biggest free agent
Absolutely.
signing.
Absolutely. Take 199. Yes, take 199,000 at this point. But I guess I'll start it off. When Tom Brady first went into, he's not really coming back. I think, what was that, in October of last year is when the rumors really started to rotate around. Yeah. It was really like, gosh, it's going to be weird to see Tom Brady, and this is just a forethought in October. It's going to be weird to see Tom Brady in not the Patriot blue. And now that it's here, it's like, in between all the other stuff that's going on in our world, it's like almost been buried, but it's a huge story. I mean, this guy's won, 6 Super Bowls in the same uniform with the same coach for, right. He's arguably the best quarterback of the entire history of the NFL. And so for him to just drop everything and leave, and then you hear all these stories where after the Deflategate thing, apparently he felt abandoned. He was looking for his way out of New England, so it was only a matter of time. So it's really, it was really, from what I understand, a long time coming.
Yeah, no. I couldn't imagine Tom Brady leaving before this year. It's pretty crazy to me, but it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how he does down there. I think for his legacy, he probably should have stayed in New England. I don't think he's gonna win in Tampa Bay, but if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm excited. I'm happy. They're gonna sell a lot of damn tickets now. So
Yeah, actually, I saw that. Apparently, before Tom Brady signed, or right before it was announced as official, their waiting line was somewhere in like the 350, for season tickets. And then right after he announced it, jumped to like 2,500. So,
yeah,
for
they
Tampa Bay
raised.
owners, they're bringing everything down there in Tampa. They're going to have a whole town named after him by the time it's over.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I
right
don't I
now
don't
it's
think he's
on
gonna
the
win there.
Yankees.
I don't think we're looking at the
Well, this is
next
the thing.
Super Bowl team.
I don't know. I think I disagree on the legacy part because, I mean, like, right now, if he retired today, I mean, big part of history is going to be, was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick? He goes to Tampa Bay, he might not win a Super Bowl, but I mean, he takes that team and wins. Let's say he wins the division in that tough division, and then puts up a solid season with 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, less than 10 picks. I mean, showing he can do it anywhere. At 40, if he can play until 43, 40. I mean, he said he wants to play until 45. So we'll have to see. If he hits that cliff.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a good point. If he's successful in Tampa Bay, um, but I mean even if you look at guys throughout history who've kind of done this, who've left their teams, really the best success story we have is Peyton Manning, who went and won another Super Bowl with the Broncos.
For sure.
Go Broncos.
And everybody doubted it then because you had the neck surgery issue with him. is he ever going to be back to winnable basically?
I think Tom Brady can still play. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's in a tougher division now. His coach, I mean, I like Bruce Arians, but Bruce Arians is not Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick.
And so, I think even if he goes down there, let's say he never wins the division again, let's say he goes down there, he makes a wild card, and they lose. I mean, like, I don't think it's gonna hurt his legacy that much, but I'm with you that I think right now he's attached to Bill. But what happens if he doesn't win with Bill? What happens if 10 years down the road, Bill Belichick's won 2 more Super Bowls with the Patriots and Jarrett Stidham?
I'd say the worst case scenario is if Tampa Bay misses the playoffs and Jarrett Stidham, New England, goes in there and wins a conference championship. That'd be brutal.
I think
it would be vomit for me because God forbid an Auburn quarterback success.
Yeah.
I'm hearing he's a big athlete, man. A lot of the players.
Oh no, yeah, he's a big athlete, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good in the preseason last year. Had one of the best preseasons of anyone. So.
And he gave.
I mean, Jacoby Brissett looks good in the Patriots uniform,
I mean, a lot of people do.
Alabama as many fits as they could too when he was still in Auburn. So.
I wouldn't discount. I would want to discount Belichick right now. We'll wait and see what Brady does. But as far as the signing goes, I'm happy for Tampa Bay fans. If I'm a Tampa Bay executive, there's no way. I mean, you guys know I support Jameis Winston, but Jameis Winston's not going to sell tickets like Tom Brady does. He's not going to sell jerseys like Tom Brady does. So I think that's a good signing. But
especially after the season he had last year, Tampa Bay I think really got hurt with all the interceptions.
Yeah.
Especially for Fairweather fans. Like Tampa Bay, this is the most excited Tampa Bay sports has been, arguably since the Lightning choked away a 3-0 lead in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But anyway.
Yeah, I was speaking of quarterbacks though who throw a lot of interceptions. How about Philip Rivers going to the Colts?
Yeah, I think it's a Band-Aid at best.
We'll get into it later, because we'll talk about some of the teams that disappointed us. But I'm not a fan of this signing. $25 million to a quarterback who, he doesn't have the legacy that Tom Brady has. Philip Rivers hasn't won 6 Super Bowls.
Super Bowl rings.
He might have to prove though. I've more to prove,
He might.
Yeah, but if you're I don't, I guess maybe I'm a guy who tends to look at things from a franchise side of things, and from the Colts, I don't care if a player has something to prove. I care about winning. So, big signing. From what I'm hearing from Colts fans, they're not that excited. I wouldn't be excited if I was a Colts fan. And we'll get into the numbers later, but there's just some curious decisions going on from normally a guy who I really like at GM. Down there running the Colts. So, we'll see what happens. But
what's his name again? Chris Ballard, right?
I think so. Isn't it Chris Ballard?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. The only thing Philip Rivers wins at is making kids. So I pray for him as he moves across the country again, because moving 6 children.
Sure, at least he doesn't have to drive 3 hours from San Diego to LA anymore.
Yeah, it could be worse, I guess. Let's see, who else are we going to talk about?
Well, I mean, we had to bring up, how about all the wide receivers on the move? You've got Hopkins traded to the Cardinals, which, I mean, we could talk for hours about how absurd this trade was, but, I think everyone here agrees with that, and I think anyone who's going to be watching this, the viewers are going to agree that, I mean, ain't much to talk about here because we all know it was a pretty stupid move. And then Diggs to Buffalo, and I think that's what makes the Hopkins trade even crazier is we just watched Diggs got traded for 4 draft picks. Hopkins got traded for 1 draft pick, essentially 1 draft pick because they swapped the 4th round picks, and a running back who has a $13 million salary and hasn't really done anything outside of 1 year.
Oh, and by the way, Houston picked up his entire salary.
Yeah, they didn't even talk down the Cardinals, man.
Arizona's not even liable for David Johnson anymore.
You also got to think what the fraud is for your franchise quarterback that has to be re-signed in a couple of years for a lot of money. You know what I mean? What is he thinking of you trading his number 1 receiver?
Exactly, and now Vegas has Deshaun Watson as the odds-on favorite to become the Patriots quarterback here in the next 2 years.
Could you imagine the trade up from Tom Brady so that Deshaun Watson
Or
and
the
the headlines go
Patriots,
crazy.
or the Patriots decide to, not tank, but not win as many games this year. They trade up and draft Trevor Lawrence. Could you imagine that?
Trevor Lawrence would go from one powerhouse to another.
Possibly
and
the
that-
greatest college quarterback of all time.
Dude, the kid's got a cannon. Kid's got a cannon, and the cannon is going to translate to the NFL. There's definitely a lot of things that don't translate, but if you got a cannon like this kid does, and you got the hair like this kid does,
You got the hair, you got the sunshine, you got the height. Listen, you got the build.
Absolutely.
He's got the numbers.
And he's a good guy, too. I'm sure y'all have seen the headlines about his fundraiser for this whole coronavirus
One of
thing.
the first players to really beat the NFL at their own game, you know what I'm saying? Or not the NFL, the NCAA.
Yeah.
How would we ever see the NCAA come back on a decision or something like that? It's crazy.
Well, we're living in unprecedented times. I think the NCAA is also slowly, very slowly, moving towards a little bit more of the liberalization of, players are still people. Like, they still have to make money to, support themselves and possibly even families for some of these older athletes. I know Alabama, we had a couple redshirt seniors this year on the team that already had daughters or sons, that they had to support in one way, shape, or form. So, I mean, the NCAA is definitely slowly, I know this is kind of off topic, but it's slowly moving towards more liberalization of, like, money making.
I think it was like the head of, the main business people of the NCAA being like, hey, we can't have this, this looks like that, and the PR team was like, hey, man, it's Trevor Lawrence, all right?
yeah.
Take another look. But, the question is what if a backup, freaking guard that doesn't see the field tries to have a GoFundMe account? Are they gonna let him do whatever he wants to?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Like I
that's
said,
just, we're just going to head
Well,
down
I think sure.
it's a rabbit hole if you start getting into this conversation, because exactly, you could bring up,
absolutely.
that all day long. But back to, wide receivers changing teams, and then, all these people trading away their top wide receiver, and then Cowboys paying $20 million a year to keep Cooper.
It was a $100 million total deal to stay in Dallas, which is great for Amari Cooper himself. Problem with that is Dallas is now slated to probably have the top paid athlete, and I saw up to 5 positions.
Yeah, I mean,
Which means they're going to right.
because they're going to sign Dak Prescott.
They're not going to have depth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, between Dak Prescott, Elliott, you've got Amari Cooper, you've got a couple linemen that they got huge numbers being paid to. I mean, they paid $24 million for a backup tight end on most teams.
Yeah.
And you've got DeMarcus Lawrence getting $20 million a year on the other side. And pretty soon they're going to have to pay Jalen Smith. They're going to have to pay not Van Noy, but
what's Van? The new guy.
Yeah, their young
Sophomore.
linebacker, Sean Lee's replacement. Well, they're gonna have to start paying these guys, and when you got a quarterback who's about to make $40 million a year, a wide receiver making $20 million, and a running back who's making top dollar, not a lot of money
And
to
a
go
hard
around.
cap league.
And that defense, as good as quote unquote good as they've been and building around, I mean, they lose, I believe, Robert Quinn right on the edge.
Yeah, they lost Robert Quinn.
Jones goes to Miami.
Byron Jones is gone, and the reason that those guys are gone is because they had to give $20 million to Amari Cooper.
Man, what's his name? Lawrence is freaking caught up with a crap ton of money.
Mm-hmm. So.
For my theory behind all this is Jerry Jones thinks he owns a Major League Baseball team because he clearly has forgotten that the NFL is a hard cap league. I mean, eventually he's going to have to make major roster moves that he's not going to like.
They're also paying underperforming Gerald McCoy 3-year, $18.3 million. I didn't see that.
Yeah. Dallas it's always interesting seeing what old Jerry's doing down there.
Yeah. And
he's got a great stadium, but I mean the team's been mediocre for how many years now?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, since the 90s, really the 90s was the last time the Cowboys were the powerhouse that, people think of the Cowboys are, which I'm not complaining about. I hope the Cowboys don't win for a while. I mean, you guys know I hate the Cowboys, but I don't think that they're making the right moves, and that's not even just from a Cowboys hater standpoint. That's from a financial standpoint. You don't pay running backs big money. Look at every running back who's got a big contract. they're not performing. They're not worth the contract. I saw a stat that every running back from the 2015 draft is now with a different team. Not a single running back who was drafted in the
Yeah.
2015 draft
That's
is with the
crazy.
same team they got drafted with. Because running backs, unfortunately, I love a good running back. I do. But they're replaceable. There's hundreds of running backs out there. Every year in the draft, there's a running back who can come in and replace someone. That's why we see very few positions in the league. Do you see a rookie come in and be one of the top in the league? And you see that with running backs. Barkley came in and was towards the top of the league. Elliott in his rookie year was towards the top of the league. It happens. Adrian Peterson, his rookie year was phenomenal. So, it's not even just a new thing. It's always kind of been that way. And you pay running backs a lot of money, you don't get it. But, going on to another signing, I think it's funny, Joe, that you bring up McCoy being signed 3 years, $18 million. That averages $6 million a year, right? For a guy
More
who's
than I'd say.
more than I'd probably pay him, but underperformed, but also shows kind of what the defensive tackle market is this year, right? And then you have the Colts trading a first-round pick for Buckner and then signing him to a contract worth over $20 million a year that makes him the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league. Only Darnold will make more. Donald. Damn, that's a hard name to say.
Apparently it is. Anyway, just the whole Dallas situation. It's been one drama. It's almost a reality show down there. In terms of like Dak Prescott thinking he's worth $40 million a year when his statistics say, hell no, you're not worth $40 million a year. What happens? And this I heard somewhere, I forget. Dallas, like I said, they're going to be saddled with 5 or 6 top salaries in the league. As a result, they're not going to have any depth. And the NFL season, now they're getting ready to add another regular season game here in a couple years, is one of the hardest seasons on players. Very rarely do you have a team get through the year relatively unscathed by the injury bug. So what happens if Dallas has 2 or 3 of these top paid guys go down? Who's going to be behind them? Probably a league minimum guy, because they can't afford to pay anybody decent money to be a decent backup. So Dallas is one of those teams that's going to be either decent or just god awful. There's going to be no in between for them.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to see how McCarthy does.
Mm-hmm.
Like McCarthy's their guy that went down him. He's got all these big name players. He's in Dallas.
But
you got that good offensive coordinator. You got to perform.
I mean, I don't know if I'd call Kellen Moore
I
a very good offensive coordinator, but
think I'm thinking of someone else. But also how is Jason Garrett an offensive coordinator all of a sudden?
yeah, I mean,
Hey,
like
right here.
Mike McCarthy, there's a
There
chance
you go.
that Mike McCarthy is going to win in Dallas. He won a little bit in Green Bay, but I think the key in Green Bay is you had Aaron Rodgers. You don't have, I mean, a lot of people out there support Dak. He has decent numbers, but no one has ever compared Dak Prescott to Aaron Rodgers because, you look at any time the Packers were down, you look at the year that they won the Super Bowl, they had a couple comeback wins even in the playoffs, right? Led by Aaron Rodgers, because you can put the ball in Rodgers' hands at the end of the game and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. You put the ball in Prescott's hands at the end of the game and you have no idea what's going to happen. He might come through, he might make the throw, but chances are he's probably not going to. You can't run the ball when you're down 10 with 5 minutes left in the game. And if you take a running game away from Prescott, he's never been that good of a quarterback. And so, who is McCarthy? What is he going to do when he's down 10, in the fourth quarter? Is he going to be able to make Prescott? Is Prescott going to make those throws for him? Is he going to put the offense around him to make those throws for him? And I just don't think it's going to be there. You look at, maybe the year off helped McCarthy. I've seen reports saying that McCarthy took the year off to, do his offense, kind of add some new touches to it. But his last couple of years in Green Bay, it wasn't up to par anymore.
It was a stagnant.
It was a very stagnant offense outside of Rodgers.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it could be possibly that having a quarterback such as Rodgers is almost intoxicating to the point where you're not really worried about the finer points of football. You're like, my quarterback's going to take care of it. And then you realize my quarterback is getting tired of having to take care of it. And then I guess it was just too late for Mike McCarthy in Green Bay to realize that. And so maybe he's taking this year off. Maybe we're going to see a brand new Mike McCarthy. Maybe we're not. He's in a completely different situation in Dallas, though. I mean, Jerry rules his franchise with an iron fist. Meanwhile, in Green Bay, it's a community-owned thing. It's a completely different organization. So we're going to have to see how all these different pieces fit together. But like I said, the depth issue, watch it, it's going to bite Dallas.
No, I agree. I agree
Dak
completely.
Situation is, the Dak situation is really kind of one of the unique quarterback situations we've seen in a long time. The argument is that he deserves this, not because of how long, what he's done while he's there, as in like a leadership and like a good guy, and he's like, he puts numbers next to others' numbers, and it's like you have to reset the market. But I don't think Jerry Jones knows as much as anybody is he's not worth quite the money he's going to get. He's not the guy that's going to break your 8-8 stint in Dallas. So it's like you're really kind of like do you fold and you pay the guy because he's been loyal, or do you and you're Jerry Jones, you gotta make the football decision.
But I don't know if Jerry Jones can make that football decision. So
yeah, that's where being the Dallas Cowboys bites you in the butt.
Exactly.
You gotta make the brand happy. You can't, it's more about a business really than it is about winning football games. I think that's why they struggle.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's move on to some other. How about some under the radar moves that you guys think of? Like,
under the radar, I really like Atlanta getting Dante Fowler Jr. I really didn't hear a whole lot about this. Atlanta has been in bad need of a pass rush for a while, especially since Vic Beasley went down for a while.
Yeah, it's disappointing that you don't see them and Beasley together.
Yeah, it's disappointing, especially me being a Falcons fan.
For sure.
But, I'm excited for the first time in a few seasons here in Atlanta, mainly due to the offensive moves. But if we can just be decent on defense.
Stay healthy, really.
Stay healthy, absolutely. If we can be decent on defense, stay healthy, and produce more than 20 points a game on offense.
More than 28 points, particularly.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I don't care if we go deep in the playoffs. I just want a winning record. Just show improvement, which we started to do latter part of last year.
And he's a guy that's like bounced around and like he's had good moments, but hasn't really put his stamp on a team yet. And he had a good year last year. Like you can expect good things.
Yeah, and I think too with the Dante Fowler, if you really look, he had his best season last year as a pro. 11.5 sacks for the Rams. And yeah, he's playing with Aaron Donald, but he looked good. And honestly, I think Fowler's an upgrade on Beasley. Beasley's had flashes, but Beasley's never been a consistent player.
Yeah, he's really just like a one-pony kind of guy.
Injury.
He's great at getting after the quarterback, but Fowler, you can move around. I mean, he's good in the run game. He's all-around kind of guy.
Yeah, and for Dante Fowler Jr. to actually produce behind, quote-unquote, Aaron Donald is almost more impressive because you're competing with him for what he's already doing.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to still be able to, and maybe having that other guy on the other side of the line helps open up more opportunities for you. I mean, you still have to make the tackles to get the sacks, though. I mean, you can have an open rush to the quarterback and miss. It's happened. I mean, you still have to be able to make the plays, and he has.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have to see how he fits into Atlanta's system now.
Moving on from that, I think one of the biggest ones we haven't even talked about today, especially for the deal that they got, is your team, the Broncos, getting Jarrell Casey for a 7th-round pick.
No, absolutely. That's one of my. I had that on my under the radar as well. For a 7th-round pick for a guy who's been to 5 straight Pro Bowls, a little bit bigger contract, but if he just even plays, you put him with Von Miller, and then you've got Chubb on the ends, and you can put him in the middle.
Defense that has pieces in place, and you're turning the team around. You got a young quarterback in there. You get a guy like that for a deal like that. Like that's got to be energizing to the team.
No, absolutely. I mean, let's say he doesn't pan out. What did you lose? You lost a 7th-round pick.
What are you losing?
Exactly.
I mean, you're in the division with the Chiefs. Like that's the kind of moves you got to do.
Yeah, and another trade that went under the radar. I don't know how it went under the radar, was Quentin Dunbar to the Seahawks for a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If you look at Pro Football Focus, rated Dunbar as the 2nd best corner in the league last year.
Really?
Really?
Really? Yeah, when you look at like his numbers in
Wow.
coverage and completion percentage, he put up some really good numbers. I mean, he wanted out, so the Redskins were kind of stuck, you know. He wanted out of Washington, and I don't blame him. Went from one Washington to the other, actually. Um, but to get him for just a fifth round pick, that's an
From the
absolute
District of
win
State.
for the Seahawks. So, I definitely think that was an under. And another quarterback move I think that's on the radar is Jimmy Smith going back to the Ravens. I think the Ravens, their secondary is a damn good secondary. They already
I think
have
the Ravens
Marcus
are almost getting
Peters
forgotten
there.
about a little bit.
You've got Humphrey, and then you've got Earl Thomas playing
Yeah.
safety, and then you've got Smith, who you can just move around to wherever you want.
Yeah. Like Joseph said, though, the Ravens have been kind of been forgotten about. Is it at all because of the way their season ended last year?
You got to think going into that postseason, a lot of people are putting money on the Ravens. Lamar Jackson's going strong, and then John Harbaugh's time, they're having a good team, and then all of a sudden they lose. And then now everyone, if you just pay attention to any kind of ESPN network, just constantly talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and is anybody going to contend them in the AFC? And it might not be as deep as the NFC all the way through, but the top teams in the AFC are as good as any.
I mean, yeah, the offensive production that Baltimore had last year, the excitement around Baltimore last year was something I don't think the NFL has seen in a while. Mainly because the Ravens win once every 20 years.
They're kind of like the Cowboys in that division. They're always kind of in there, but kind of just have like a meet around 500 record and don't really do much. And they also got Calais Campbell. I mean, if that guy can produce on the end with the defense they have, he's something special.
No, I really like the Ravens this year. I really like the Ravens. I think the Ravens are, I think Patrick Mahomes is amazing. You're gonna have to go through him if you want to win the AFC right now. But let's not forget about the Ravens were the number one seed last year. The Ravens were the one beating everyone by like 20 points. And the Ravens haven't gotten worse. They didn't lose any pieces. They added pieces, right?
The one thing I thought I heard was you brought it today was Michael Pierce, right? Didn't he move?
Michael Pierce did move. That's right. You're right. Michael Pierce did move, but it's the Ravens. The Ravens have let linemen walk away for years, and they always have someone there to replace him.
And then Calais Campbell won.
Yeah, and then you bring Calais Campbell in. Exactly. And you still have Judon. So, I would definitely, if I'm a Ravens fan right now, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to this season, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him for looking forward to it. Another move, so I guess, moving on, not quite under the radar move. A lot of people have been paying attention to it, but a move that probably surprised a lot of people was Panthers releasing Cam Newton, not even being able to trade him.
Talk about untradeable. I mean, everybody's been calling Cam Newton untradeable for the last 2 years.
So yeah.
And mainly that's due to his, more flamboyant attitude, which is fine as long as you're the starter. If you're going to have that flamboyant attitude as a backup, it's not going to work. I mean, look what happened to, and now I love Tim Tebow, look what happened to him in New England. It was a media circus. If Cam Newton goes somewhere and is backup, the media is going to be there trying to get him to be in his normal self.
That's why I think the Chargers are such a good spot. I mean, what else have they got to put in their media right now,
Yeah, but I guess like my thing with Cam Newton is I don't think Cam Newton's going to be willing to take a backup contract. The dude was just earning. He was earning.
Right.
He was scheduled this year to make a little over $21 million. The highest paid backup in the league last year was Teddy Bridgewater with the Saints, who earned just over $7 million. So that's a third of what Cam Newton was making. So is he going to be willing to take that pay cut? Because he's definitely not getting more than that. No team's going to pay him $10 million or more to be a backup, or even be a guy that they think might start, right? There's not a lot of teams that need him. And so, if a team was one quarterback away from, going to the Super Bowl this year, I could see them wanting to sign him. But there really aren't those teams. The teams that are going to compete this year have a quarterback. And if he's not willing to take a backup contract, then where's he going to go? Is he going to, if San Diego offers him $5 million, is he going to be willing to go to San Diego?
San Diego.
LA.
I did it earlier. Yeah, okay. The quarterbacks situation this year is really unfortunate because the market is saturated, and many teams don't need them.
Thinking of the draft, I mean,
right, absolutely,
all down the draft.
Which, I mean, that's a developmental thing. You can have a rookie sit as a backup because they are just happy to be in the league. Cam Newton, who's played in the Super Bowl and was a league MVP, if I remember correctly, here.
2015.
Exactly.
Also, you have
For
to
him
think,
to suddenly be a backup, that's a huge culture change.
and you also have to
I think
think.
the interesting thing is looking at the moves is the Chargers. I mean, for how quiet you haven't really heard them talk about much, is they've made a lot of moves. They put a lot of money out this offseason. I mean, $30 million to a tackle, Eckler $25 million, Chris Harris $17. I mean, Linval Joseph was $17. I mean, they're putting that. I can't imagine they have much cap to be throwing out extra quarterbacks.
Well, and two is, do you think
that's another Cam Newton situation?
with Cam Newton, we just talked about with the draft. The Chargers have the 6th spot in the draft. A lot of people think they're going to take Herbert there. Is Cam Newton the guy that you want mentoring your rookie QB, or would you rather have Tyrod Taylor? Because I'd rather have Taylor. Cam Newton's been very.
Absolutely.
Cam Newton is not your average quarterback, and he never has been, and I don't think he's ever going to be. That'll never be his style. So which guy would you rather teach Herbert? And again, like, are you going to be able to sign? If you draft Herbert, maybe you sit him this year, but there's no way he sits 2 years. Is Cam Newton going to take a 1-year contract knowing that he's gone next year for not a lot of money and be willing to be the mentor that you need him to be? No. And I don't blame teams for not.
I think I mostly agree, but I think a lot. I mean, not a lot, but I think Cam Newton also kind of gets bad reps sometimes with like team chemistry and stuff like that. He's a little wild in interviews and whatnot. But if you look at like the players who say goodbye to him and everything, like Cam Newton's a player's guy.
Well, I mean, he was a runner-up for Walter.
I'm not sure about Herbert, but I'm sure a lot of young guys would love to hang out with Cam Newton. And be around him as he works.
They would probably love to hang out with Cam Newton. But it's not necessarily the guy that you want mentoring your young players. You want a quarterback who's under control when he's on the field at all times. Cam Newton hasn't always been that guy. You don't want a quarterback who out there who makes, is causing fights. And Cam Newton, takes a lot of big hits because he pisses a lot of people off with his attitude. Not necessarily
You want a quarterback that goes out there and lays out on the fumble, right?
Right, and that too, and then again, I just keep going back. I don't think Cam Newton's going to be willing to take less money, and he doesn't deserve the money right now. And it's the same thing again. Like, I love Jameis Winston. The dude threw for 5,000 yards last season, but he's going to have to take a backup job this year. He's going to have to take less money, and I don't see Cam Newton being, with who he is as a person. I don't think Cam Newton's going to be willing to do that.
You know what I think? You were saying it the other night. The best possibility for probably him or Jameis Winston is if we get into a couple games in the year and Big Ben isn't feeling good again or not performing, looking a little old. Because the Steelers are that team who they don't have a future right now for quarterback unless they draft somebody. So I mean, they definitely could. And their team is a good team. I mean, they're on the cusp of the playoffs with Devin Hodges at quarterback. So I mean, Big Ben gets hurt.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, especially for Jameis, I think that's a great line spot because I think Jameis might be.
He'll probably take a strong field.
Yeah, I think Jameis Winston will be more willing to take that backup deal at this point in his career. It's a little easier for Winston because Winston's only 26, so you sit for 2 years and you're Winston, then you come out 28 and now you're a starter. Right now, Cam Newton's about to turn 31. If you're 31, you can't afford to sit for 2 years, especially with someone his style of play, because we can bring up the passing numbers. He's never been that great of a passer. In fact, his passing numbers are pretty comparable to Tyrod Taylor's. But what has Cam Newton always brought to the field, and that's athleticism. But is he going to be that athletic even now at 31 after having a foot injury all year? But is he going to be that athletic in 2 years when after he sits and tries to wait for another chance to start? Probably not.
No. And that's the biggest problem with these athletic quarterbacks. A la Tua's injury.
A la RG3.
Right. They get into these injuries more often. What happens, if Cam Newton gets hurt, during this season? It makes more sense that he would sit out a year.
Yeah.
But he's completely healthy now,
I think that's
where's he going to go? Where's he going to go?
He's pretty much on a contract year. He's finally healthy. He's in a locker room saying, "They gave up on me." Listen to gospel music as he's working out, man. I mean, you just got to get your blood pumping. as a fan, you kind of just want to. I mean, I don't exactly love Cam Newton, but the storyline, like I'd love for Cam Newton to just go tear it up and then tell Matt Rule to screw himself.
Yeah, and
It
and
wasn't
Matt
even
and
that
Matt
much
Rule's
to start them off.
Matt Rule's not gonna care because Matt Rule's rebuilding. You know what I mean? Matt Rule's gonna say, "Okay, I'll see you in 5 years, and we'll see who's more successful." Chances are it's probably gonna be Matt
If I'm not
Rule.
mistaken, it's Matt Rule and then it's the coordinator from LSU, right? What's his
Yes,
name? Joe something.
yes.
Yeah, that's
So
real interesting. I mean,
The author of all my nightmares.
yeah, and again, like I kind of agree with you. I'm not a huge Cam Newton fan. I think he's good enough to be on an NFL roster, but I think
for
where
sure.
we disagree is I don't think Cam Newton has the skill set anymore to prove people
Has
wrong.
that much left in the tank.
Yeah,
No,
I just don't think he
I think
does.
he's in great shape. If he can stay healthy, he can be a weapon either way. My thing is, when was the last time we saw him throw the football back in his MVP season? You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he in 2018, he had decent numbers. It was actually he had his highest completion percentage ever. He was on pace to throw for the most yards, most likely in his career, other than his rookie season. And so yeah, he had that going for him. But I think people misconstrue just how good Cam Newton was because he won that MVP. But Cam Newton played nine. There was 9 seasons where Cam Newton was the starter going into the season. Only 3 of those seasons were winning seasons. He's only won 3 playoff games in his career. Yeah, he won the MVP in 2015, but in the Super Bowl, he didn't even dive on a football, right? He wasn't willing to go in there and get that football. And then you look at like his
Which could
numbers.
have secured.
He's only hit more than or passed for more than 4,000 yards once in his career. He's only passed for more than 24 touchdowns once in his career. He's never had less than 10 interceptions in a season. Again, he's only had 3 winning seasons. His career passing percentage, completion percentage is under 60%. And in fact, he only has 2 seasons where it was above 60 at all. Those aren't the numbers of a guy who at 31 is going to go prove a team wrong. Those are the guys of someone who had a solid career, had one good year where he won the MVP. He was athletic. Now he's 31. Now he's going to go be a mentor to some guy. But that's not Cam Newton's personality. And so that's what I think the biggest flaw is that he's not going to take that backup contract. He's not going to be that mentor to someone. And at this point, I just don't think it's worth paying him money.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we agree, all 3 of us, to that to varying degrees. I think I'm more behind you than Joseph is, but I think he might eventually find somewhere to end about Dallas's depth problem. What if old $40 million man gets hurt? Where's Dallas going to turn to?
Yeah, but Dallas ain't going to have the money to
pick up
pay for Cam Newton.
I mean, you might
for half a year.
You might not believe completely in Cam's skill set, but I mean, if Cam hits his potential, I mean, that's pretty much a bigger and better Dak Prescott. If you think about it.
Yeah, but Dak Prescott is in his 20s and Cam Newton's about to turn 31.
Yeah, but Dak Prescott also wants $35 million a year for 4 years.
Yeah,
Right.
and I agree with you there, but the one thing that you're gonna have, we don't know what you have a higher ceiling right now with Dak Prescott than you do with Cam Newton. Dak Prescott almost hit 5,000 this year. Again, Cam Newton's only been over 4,000 once in his career.
I like Dak Prescott. I think ever since his SEC days, I think Dak Prescott's as a player. He might not have the biggest arm and make the most crazy plays, but I think he's his competitiveness and his leadership. I think he's a great guy to have around your team.
If you remember,
I don't think he has the it factor though. I think that's the one thing missing. If Dak Prescott had the it factor that some of the other QBs the successful QBs have had, I think Dak Prescott would be a great guy, a great QB.
The thing is with the Cowboys is he shouldn't have to be. You think Ezekiel Elliott would be that it factor, but it really just hasn't been there. For 90-something million a year with the number 3 pick in the draft or something like that, taking a running back that high.
Yeah, no.
but Ezekiel Elliott was a monster, and he still sort of is.
Still is, but man,
Right.
I think that might have paid more to Jason Garrett than Ezekiel Elliott.
Put it this way, at least Ezekiel Elliott has proven his worth. I mean, the Browns did basically the same thing with Trent Richardson, and we see how that went. But for instance, Dak Prescott. Remember that weird year in college football where they were number 1 in November? I mean, he held Alabama he ran Alabama pretty close
Oh,
in
Mississippi State,
in our home field.
that was a crazy year actually.
We only won 25-20. I mean, Dak Prescott had to have something to do with that.
Yeah, but what did they not do in that game? What did Mississippi State not do?
They did not win.
They didn't win, and that's the
They
same
did
thing
not
that
win.
we've seen with Dallas.
Against Alabama, man, come on now.
I'm just saying.
But is Prescott going to beat the
Alabama's
Saints in the playoffs? Is Prescott going to beat the 49ers in the
Saints can't
playoffs?
stop beating themselves in the playoffs.
Oh, at some point their luck is going to change. But if you've got the 49ers, do you think is Prescott going to be able to beat the Seahawks in the playoffs? Who would you take, Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott?
That's where I was going next. I don't think he can perform in the big games. Like, for instance, he had to have won games impressively for his team to be number one back in that day. I mean, you have to win games to be ranked. Same thing with Dallas. Like, for him to be anywhere good, he had his best year last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, he had to have had production for him to even be in this conversation. I like him he's a fairly nice guy from what I understand. So in terms of a locker room presence, apparently he's great. But I think just a little bit more on the field production, a little bit more of the it factor, and this wouldn't be as big of a debate.
I think Dak Prescott's a really interesting topic, and this is kind of how like the big shows get caught up talking about the Cowboys all the time because Jerry Jones is so moving. But I think we pretty much covered the Cowboys.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I think the viewers are pretty set on what we feel about Prescott and the Cowboys. So, let's talk about some other teams. What teams do you guys think improved the most from free agency?
I think what could be one of the biggest upswings in this team, talking about staying in that division, is Ron Rivera and the Redskins, man. I mean, I don't know about the quarterback situation because Haskins started coming around the end of the year, but they figured out he has dyslexia, maybe he can run the playbook and everything. But they've made some big signings. They just got Kyle Allen, which I don't think that's a big deal, but Kendall Fuller is a great corner. He's going to make a big difference in that defense. I mean,
they picked up an offensive
guard. I mean, not a lot of these guys stick out a ton, but they've definitely added some depth. And like Ron Rivera and his system it's gonna bring the fight back in that football team.
And depth is important in the NFL. Like I said, it's very rare in a 16, almost 17 game regular season that is in our near future. It's very rare that a team escapes with all of its starters still well and at a playing level. So depth is important, and I think a lot of shows. The evening talk shows or the morning debate shows that are now, becoming popular. They really overstate the starters. I mean, depth is important because very rarely, especially on the lines, do you have an original starting, five on the line.
Depth is what gets you into the playoffs. When talent in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, your starters win the games, but you need depth to be able to get you through the 17-game war that is the regular season.
Yeah, I'm not saying I think the Redskins are going to be close to a contender, but in that division, how close it is every year. You bring in a Ron Rivera instead of a Jay Gruden, and you have Adrian Peterson back. You get your young quarterback playing well. You play hard football. It'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's funny that you picked the Redskins. Actually, one of my teams I think improved the most is a team from that division as well as the Eagles, and I really loved what the Eagles did this year. The Eagles, their two biggest problems last year was that they were old and they had a lot of injuries, and that their secondary couldn't stop anything. Like literally, you could have thrown a car through there, and they wouldn't be able to knock the car down.
It looks like they have a whole new secondary now.
A whole new secondary, and it's a good secondary too. So they got Robbie Coleman, who's one of the best slot corners in the league. He gets a lot of hate for what happened with the Saints. But they got him for a 1 year, $1 million. They're paying him $1 million. So it's not hard to live up to that contract. You've got Darius Slay, who you traded for, and they traded a 3rd and 5th round pick for him. So it's not like they got rid of a lot.
Should have a chip on his
shoulder. And even last year, I want to give you. So these are the wide receivers that Darius Slay covered, and he covered pretty much for the entire game. Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, and Devontae Adams. On almost every single one of their targets against the Lions, he covered them, no matter where they were in the field. And his numbers weren't that bad. I know things broke down with him and the Lions, but I really like this move. And Philly's had, secondary problems. I mean, he shores that up, and then like you said, you got Robbie Coleman. You bring back Robbie McLeod, who numbers show that, especially Pro Football Focus, look at their stuff, that he was almost just as important to their team as Jenkins was. They brought him back for less money.
Oh yeah.
You get rid of Jenkins, so
Will
you clear
Parks.
cap space. You bring back you sign Will Parks from Denver, who was a good solid player, and they brought back Jalen Mills, who they're going to move to safety, which was the position that he originally played. And still, their team, you still have Carson Wentz. I'm a Carson Wentz fan. Miles Sanders. I'm a Miles Sanders fan. You've got Alshon Jeffrey on the edges. There's plenty of wide receiver depth in this draft for them to add a playmaker. And you still have Ertz, and you still have Goddard, and you still have one of the best offensive lines in the league.
And you got rid of Aguilar.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about who dropping footballs anymore.
Exactly. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Eagles, and I really liked what the Eagles did in free agency. And I know they didn't bring in a lot of big names, but they also brought in some solid defensive line players, a defensive tackle from the Steelers and Hargraves.
That's what I was pointing out to James. Is Hargrave? I mean, on a big deal there. You put him in there with I think Fletcher Cox on the inside.
Yeah, you have Fletcher Cox. Yeah. And so,
he's an underrated player.
If they get that secondary fixed, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator there, he doesn't need star players on the front seven. He needs guys that can play man to man, and he'll bring in a lot of blitz, and he'll bring different pressures. And I like the Eagles next year. That, like you brought up, that division is open every year. We've talked about the Cowboys. We've talked the Redskins are down. The Giants, who knows what's going on with the Giants? So
the Giants might be the most intriguing team in the division. Like, who knows? I mean, like, is Daniel Jones going to get his act together and Saquon stay healthy? They're going to have a deep. Like, what is what's his name? Jason Garrett going to do?
Yeah.
Well.
So I definitely like the Eagles this year.
Yeah, this is Jason Garrett right here.
Yeah.
Another team that they're kind of in that same spot. The division just finally opened up, and I think they had a good free agency. Was the Bills? They didn't make tons of moves, but they had a really good free agency last year, a good draft, and guess who left the division? Tom Brady, right? So they made the playoffs last year.
This is the make or break year for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Right now.
You give him Stephon Diggs.
With all the stuff. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, you give him Stephon Diggs. First of all, that's all a quarterback can ask for is his team to go out and give him a top cornerback, and they did, or wide receiver, my bad. They went out, they brought back a wide receiver, and there's no Brady in the division. Like, that's all you have to say about why you like the Bills this year. And that's what I'm going to say is that they added pieces, they brought back almost everyone on defense, and they added Shaq Lawson, who was underrated in Carolina, and there's no Brady. Like, this is the year of the Bills.
Who else?
I don't think they got Shaq Lawson. I think Shaq Lawson went somewhere else. I thought I saw him somewhere down here.
Anyway, the biggest problem with the Bills the last few years has been their consistent mediocrity. And whether that's because the Patriots have just had a chokehold on the AFC East for the past 20 years, or just the way they've done their moves. This is a make or break year for Josh Allen, mainly because who else is going to win that division? Miami? I mean, possibly. It's definitely not going to be the Jets.
I mean, if I put money on it, I'd still put money on the Patriots if we're going to be honest. But I think Stephon Diggs gives Josh Allen an option they haven't had. I mean, he takes it off their offense by far. I mean, Kelvin Benjamin was probably the last reliable receiver they had, and he's not in the stage of his career where he's going to be good anymore. I mean, what they have last year, Cole Beasley and some other guys out there. But like with Josh Allen, the thing is, he's got a great arm. Stephon Diggs can out the field, but you can't do that on every play. And I know they what's his name? McCoy left. I don't know who their running back is besides Frank Gore these days.
Devin Singletary, who had a really good rookie year. Yeah, Devin Singletary had a really good rookie year.
Who was that?
Singletary.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that.
Singletary, and he had a good rookie year. So now he's poised for a bigger year. They had. And you talk about, you can't just throw it. You can't just throw the ball, chuck it downfield every play with Allen. But I mean, clearly the Bills, their offensive staff knows how to use him. They were a wild card team last year. There's a lot of people thought that they could beat the Patriots and win the division. They lost both games to the Patriots, so they didn't. But they were right up there last year. And I think you add pieces.
2 years in a row, right? I believe so. Yeah.
And you were right, by the way. They didn't add Shaq Lawson. They added Mario Addison.
Yeah.
Who had a good number, or who had good numbers in Carolina. So I think the Bills are a sneaky team to watch this year. And then the other team I think improved the most, and I think we're all going to kind of agree on this one, is Tampa Bay. Not necessarily even just on the field. I
yeah.
think they improved on the field. They brought back what was the number one rushing defense. But you added Tom Brady. You added arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. Your ticket sales are up. Your jersey sales are going to be up. So, I don't care if Tampa Bay could win 6 games next year, and they still won the offseason.
Oh, absolutely, and it's just because they got the biggest name out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, and they also brought back, I can't say his first name, Sue.
And Ndamukong Suh, yeah, and that was a good signing. And Ndamukong Suh's been really solid.
His name, I'm going to be cited crazy.
Yeah,
Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, they still have some weaknesses. They brought back pretty much everyone who helped them with the number one defense. They still have some weaknesses in the secondary, and so like with people who are already picking the Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, the secondary really concerns me. Vernon Hargreaves wasn't very good when he was there, and they got rid of him. There's just not a lot of We'll see. We'll see what they do in the draft to kind of address that. But their secondary scares me. Outside of that, though, their running game. The running game scares me. Well, I'd like to see them do something there. But you added Tom Brady. You have a good receiving core, and you have a pretty dang good defense. So I understand why people are excited. And again, you added a GOAT. So props to you, Tampa Bay. But
I think, in my mind, I don't think Tampa Bay. I mean, it's going to be real tough to win the division. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the Saints are a regular season machine, and Carolina's gotten probably better. I mean, the whole division is going to be competitive, and I think I still see the Saints taking away the division. But I mean, Tampa Bay could be a real interesting wild card.
And especially now with the extra wild card, there's gonna be 3 wild cards.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I forgot about that.
There's a really good. I think Tampa Bay makes the playoffs next year. I really do think Tampa Bay makes it. I don't know how they'll do in the playoffs. But yeah, if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm excited. I still think Tampa Bay did great this offseason. Just they could have literally they could have let everyone else on the team leave, bring in just Tom Brady, and you would have won free agency. So. But let's kind of talk about how about some losers of free agency, teams that you thought their teams got worse, or that they just kind of disappointed you. Houston, absolutely,
that's
yeah.
The biggest one. Yeah, and it's not. Houston has always been on that cusp of will they or won't they? They're a perennial wild card team. I mean, it's almost every year now. They host a wild card game. So basically they're winning the AFC South. And then they take a giant crap in the wild card round. Am I the only one that thinks that this is just like deja vu for them over and over and over again? And when are they going to break out of it?
Yeah, and their signings, outside of, we can talk about, you traded DeAndre Hopkins and that was stupid, but then you go and you sign Randall Cobb for a pretty big contract. You bring in a safety, I can't think of his name right now, but they brought in a safety who was a special teams player. And they paid him top of the market safety money basically, and you just shake your head at the moves they have no first round draft picks, they only have 1 second round draft pick for the next 2 years, and all guys that they traded away, and you just wonder what is going on there, like what is the plan, like who
it's almost crazy to think about it. If you put it on paper and just even take DeAndre Hopkins out of the conversation, I mean that kind of loss of draft picks without playoff wins in return, like you think he'd be out of there already.
But instead they're giving him more power. They gave him more power. And it is crazy. I'm with you. I definitely think the Texans disappointed. My biggest disappointment is actually a team from that division as well, and that's the Colts. I just think the Colts have absolutely disappointed this offseason. They brought in Buckner, which I still think they paid him too much money, but he's a great player. So, you can kind of count that one as like a draw. But one thing with Buckner is you also gave up a first-round pick. So you're making him the second highest paid defensive tackle plus a first-round pick. So
yeah,
he has to really perform.
Players hold first-round picks that often right now.
Right.
Like first-round picks are
You didn't,
Maybe you're taking for the future.
you have essentially, because you added a first round pick to it, you essentially made him more valuable to your team than Donald is for the Rams, right? Because yes, his contract is less, but Aaron Donald doesn't have a first round pick attached to him, and now Buckner does, and
Aaron
then
Donald is head and shoulders. Aaron Donald is head and shoulders above the rest of the D lines that
Yeah.
are like the top. I mean, like you could say that Buckner's at the top 3, but if you look at Aaron Donald's production, I mean,
it's off the
he's
charts.
like what double?
Yeah.
He's off the
Yeah.
charts.
And then too, so the Colts have made 5 moves this offseason, and they went in with the second most cap space in the free agency of any team. Only the Dolphins had more. They had over
That's
80
wild.
million. The Colts had over 80 million in cap space, and they've done 5 things with that. They brought back Anthony Costanza, which is a decent signing, but he's 32. But I think they should have brought him back. But you bring him back. They paid Philip Rivers $25 million. They paid Buckner 21 and lost a first round draft pick. Then they signed
I
a
think
tackle.
The one that I really like is Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah, so they signed a defensive tackle. His last name's Day, who had 15 tackles and 1 sack last year. And then they brought in Xavier Rhodes. And I agree with you. I think Xavier Rhodes can, he might be able to show, prove himself this year. But you've made 5 signings, and those are your 5 signings, and you had 80 million in cap room. And I just want to bring up the fact that with those 5 signings, they went from 80 million in cap room to 20.
Whoa.
No,
So for those 5 players, they lost
They have
60 million in
They
cap.
have the most money tied up in quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
Because
So
Jacoby Brissett's on a $20-something million deal.
yeah. So I was going to get into that actually. So Jacoby Brissett's cap hit this year is $21.375 million. Philip Rivers' cap hit this year is $25 million. You know who else has a cap hit for the quarterback position for them?
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck at $6.1 million, and he's currently what people think is the rhinoceros
Sitting on his
on
couch.
Masked Singer. People think the dude is on the Masked Singer, and he's getting paid $6.1 million a year against your quarterback. And
I earlier looking at the Colts, I was kind of like surprised with the Buckner move, and I was kind of thinking that the Colts were doing decent, but really, like when you bring in the numbers into it, it just really doesn't make any sense.
yeah, I get you. I could talk all day about how I'm not a Philip Rivers fan. I can talk all day about how he threw 20 interceptions last year to only 23 touchdowns, and he had better wide receivers. I could bring up the numbers between Brissett and Rivers. That Brissett had 61% completions, Rivers 66. Rivers had more passing yards, but he also had 150 more pass attempts. That Brissett had 18 touchdowns, as I brought up. Rivers only had 23, so only 5 more, and you can add 4 rushing touchdowns for Brissett. So Rivers scored 1 more touchdown. Rivers had 14 more interceptions, though. 14 more interceptions. And on top of that,
He was second behind Winston, right?
third. There was one player who had more turnovers combined, but I think in interceptions, yeah, he might have been second.
And interception.
Rivers' play style, speaking of that, when it comes down to like end of game things, he always pushes. You know what I mean? He really does not care about stats.
No.
He will throw that ball, not worrying about interceptions or whatever.
Which the NFL's kind of past that.
Right.
It's about precision and
Absolutely.
about playmakers and about limiting and making most out of your possessions, not being a gunslinger.
And so speaking of playmakers, you bring up playmakers. Let's go over the playmakers that he had with next to him in San Diego last year. So you had Allen, who had 104 receptions. Williams had 49 receptions, but for over 1,000 yards. Eckler had 92 receptions. Gordon had 42 receptions. And Hunter Henry, you got to throw him in there. And then you look at the guys that he's going to have around him in the Colts now. And this is why I'm so disappointed what the Colts did. Because you have T.Y. Hilton. And when was the last time T.Y. Hilton was healthy? He played. He can't stay healthy. He played a lot of games last year, but he wasn't healthy, right? And then behind him, their second receiver is Pascal, who had 41 receptions. And he only had 5 touchdowns. And then you drop to their third guy, and it was Campbell, he was a rookie, 18 receptions for 127 yards. He's got no one to throw to. Yeah, and so there's so many bad moves you could look at with the Colts this year. Signing an old QB who's past his prime for $25 million a year, when you already have a QB with 21 million on the books, and are they going to be able to get? Who's going to take Brissett from them? Who's going to take that contract? We already talked about
Nobody's
how
that
the quarterback saturated, the market is oversaturated, right? So they're not getting rid of that contract. So you've got 47 million tied up between those guys, right? You didn't, and even that guy that you paid 25 million to replace your 21 million dollar quarterback doesn't have that much better numbers. He has less people to throw to than he did last season, and he didn't use any of that cap to add to that. Like I just, and you lost Eric Ebron. He's gone. Jack Doyle hasn't stayed healthy. You kind of have to sit there and look, and the Colts had so much potential going into this year, 80 million in cap room, and you just kind of you waste 25 million of it on Philip Rivers. I'm extremely
I would
disappointed in what
kill
the
for
Colts
80
did.
million in cap room.
That's what you want to do. But if I could play devil's advocate with one point, maybe make another point, then we could rebuttal and maybe wrap it up with the Colts. Is well, for one thing, I'm always kind of liked Jacoby Brissett. He played at Florida for a little bit. He's like a kind of like an under the radar guy who was like born in New England. Like before he hurt his knee, he looked great. The team loves him. He's apparently like the guy in the locker room even when Andrew Luck was there. So you kind of see how he got the money and what they were thinking, but it's kind of hard to see them move on so fast when he was playing great before he hurt his knee, especially for Philip Rivers. The one thing I was going to play devil advocate about Rivers is like, is with the whole quarterback market and everything. Let's say you want to wait till next year, try to get, or maybe draft a quarterback, have somebody start ahead of him. You've played with your Frank Reich and Philip Rivers have a background. He might be doing some kind of a favor, trying to like give Philip Rivers a chance. And bring in a guy, and like a lot of people have said that he probably knew he was on the way out in L.A., not San Diego, L.A. And he was driving to work. He was probably tired of it. He was just slinging the football around, but I mean, it's hard to even play the devil's advocate for it. I mean,
Yeah,
Frank
and
Reich is a great coach, and
one
Alex
of
knows what he's doing, but it's tough.
one of your points, well, and so 2 points I'm going to make real quick, and then I'm going to make three. The last one's really short, and then we can wrap it up and move on. So the first point is you bring up Frank Reich. Well, Frank Reich, yes, he has a background with Philip Rivers. Did you know he was fired before the season was even over because his offensive numbers were so bad with Philip Rivers, right? Um, the second point is, like you said, you know what? Maybe you just thought this was your best option for this year, but you only signed him to a 1 year contract. He's like 38. He's struggled. How much time does he have left? Do you think that he's going to be the difference maker this year? Or do you think that money you could have used just left Brissett in? If you're not a fan of Brissett, but maybe you're looking towards the future, just leave Brissett in
got him
there.
under contract.
Spread that money.
You already got him under a $20
Right.
million contract. What else? How worse can it be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spread that money around, right? Maybe give some young players some chances. I mean, you could have signed 5, 6 young guys to the same contract you did Philip Rivers to improve other places on your team, and then made them move for quarterback. But they're signing him as if this is the year. They have the team. They just needed a veteran quarterback, and then they didn't even bring in the best veteran quarterback on the market. And then my third point is going back to Tampa Bay. Why we think Tampa Bay was so smart for signing Brady was fans, right? Is that you've increased the fans don't like Philip Rivers. Colts fans aren't happy. The San Diego fans didn't like. My apologies. Exactly. San Diego fans and then Los Angeles fans, they couldn't get people to go. They played in a soccer stadium and still had more opposing fans. They only had like a 23,000, like it only took 23,000 people to fill up the stands, and they still couldn't do that. So clearly there weren't a lot of fans of Philip Rivers
It's not
there.
even 23,000.
There aren't a lot of fans
That
of Philip.
It's like 8,500.
There aren't even fans of Philip Rivers
What the craziest?
in Indianapolis. And so, like, I just don't see a lot of benefit from this.
You know what the craziest thing about it might be is, to wrap it up, is it's kind of went under the radar. I mean, there's been reporting about it, sure, but with the whole Tom Brady, where's he going? What's he doing with this? Like, he's a 40-something. Like, Philip Rivers, Tom Brady was not playing the same period right now. Signing a 38-year-old quarterback to a $25 million deal when he's looked like how Philip Rivers has looked would be the biggest thing on the biggest topic in the ESPN.
Exactly.
Like Tom Brady is the GOAT with 6 rings and is just completely overshadowing the move
But-
of Philip Rivers. Everyone's just kind of like, oh, they got Philip Rivers. We'll see
Yeah.
what he can do.
Well,
And-
I think it's partially due to the fact that Philip Rivers has not won a ring.
Yeah.
Has he even won an AFC ring?
But that's the thing is like you think that that would be even more of a headline because like Philip Rivers never won a ring, 25 mil. Is he gonna do it? But Tom Brady's just completely taking.
Well, I'll tell you this. People, I don't understand why, but the media has always loved Philip Rivers. The media loves him. The media has always talked about him.
Down to earth Southern guy.
Every year, including last year, I think a lot of people forget that the Chargers were Super Bowl favorites, or one of the Super Bowl favorites heading into the year. Every year, the Chargers are picked that they're going to go be good. And then every year, Philip Rivers kind of disappoints. He puts up decent numbers, 4,000 passing yards, a relatively poor touchdown to interception ratio. They don't win the big games. And then every year, the same thing comes around. Well, Philip Rivers just didn't have talent around him. This is the year. And so, I think it's going to be the same thing with the Colts. But one more team before we move on that I want to talk about as a disappointment. And I think that this goes back to the last couple of years, is the Rams ever since the Super Bowl. They pretty much lost everyone this year. Their linebacking core is gone. Gurley is gone. Cooks is about to be gone. They lost their best slot corner. They have Aaron Donald, but they have no room for anyone. They have Jared Goff on a huge contract, and it's just, I think shows how bad poor team building is, and how much when you sign a quarterback to a huge contract before he's really ready, it's gonna kill your team.
Yeah. How about another team that's sort of kind of disappointing, and I think this is another team that has had 2 years of drama and disappointment. How about the Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders? Whatever. They're not even in Las Vegas yet, or have they actually officially made the move?
I was pointing this out. I wanted to talk about it. You started off the Colts, and I kind of forgot, and I wanted to get it in there. It's like they've made a lot of moves for a lot of not great players, in my opinion. I mean, Nelson Aguilar is one of the most questionable receivers. I mean, he's only a $1 million deal, but Eli Apple was one of the most underperforming corners on the Saints that was last year. I mean, a lot of these other guys, I don't even really know their names. Whatever his name is, the linebacker, Kowski is a good player, and Corey Littleton, but Mariota is not the answer. Jason Witten on a $4 million deal, like the man should be retired.
The man was retired.
And that division, I think, is what makes it big. It's like that division you have to make. Like the Broncos are making money moves. Like they're trying. They're competing. The Chargers and the Raiders are both just kind of on the same.
Yeah, but that's who the Raiders are. That's who the Chargers are, and I think you have to look at who's running the Raiders right now. And Gruden, yes, he won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, but then the team just kind of fell apart. And I agree. I'm not exactly sure what the Raiders are doing. I love the Raiders' moves because I think it's going to keep them from being a top.
Because you hate the Raiders, just to make sure the fans know.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really understand. I think Derek Carr is a very capable quarterback, and I think he's been crapped on a lot. I think that, signing Mariota, I get that they're trying to do a whole Tennessee thing here, but I don't really think he adds to your team. You're right. Like, what weapons, adding Aguilar, you're not really giving Derek Carr that many more weapons. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft. He's not going to solve your secondary problems. I do like the linebacking signing was good. I think they might have paid him too much money, but that's neither here or there.
But him and Littleton, hopefully that makes some kind of – Littleton's had good moments.
Right. But I definitely think that there's some questionable moves there, and it'll be interesting to see what plays out. They spent a lot of money, yeah.
$36 million, and Nassib is on $25 million. You're doing like 10 deals. I mean, I know you have cap space, maybe spend it, but not on these guys.
Yeah. So no, I'm definitely with you guys there. I think. There's probably a lot of people that I don't know if I would. I don't think the Raiders have made the best moves. I don't know if I would necessarily say they're a disappointment just because we kind of have to wait and see how the moves pan out. But no, I'm definitely with you guys. I think the Raiders are a little. It's definitely been a curious offseason for them. So now we've kind of, I think, we've laid out the teams that we think improved. We've laid out the teams that we think kind of like are taking a step back next year. We talked about the top signings. So before we start, everyone's gonna soon, pretty soon, we're gonna transition to talking about the draft, here in the sports world. So free agency's over. What is your sleeper pick? Give me a pre-draft sleeper pick.
So one that we were kind of, we were talking about maybe trying to fit in with the, we kind of forgot to put with the improvements, but especially in the division that we've been talking about might be a little weak right now. It's the Miami Dolphins. I mean, maybe not possibly this year, but maybe next year when they draft a quarterback, or they draft one this year, they get Tua or something like that. I mean, they got a lot of good signings here with Byron Jones and Kyle Van Noy and Jordan Howard. I mean, Colbert and safety. They got a lot of Shaq Lawson was where he actually ended up going. This guy we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, they played hard football in a couple games last year.
Yeah, Brian Flores got that team to play.
They play in a great location.
Yeah, he's a coach who get to play hard. And what's their competition? The quarterbackless Patriots and Josh Allen.
Yeah, no.
The Jets are. I'm not even going to talk about the Jets. I mean,
no, I'm with you. I think
2 words for the Jets: dumpster fire.
I definitely think the Miami could be a good sleeper pick. I think, especially again, this is what we keep talking about, is there's an extra wild card team this year. I think that they could be there. My pre-draft sleeper pick, I'm proud to say, I'm buying in. I'm gonna pick my Denver Broncos as my pre-draft sleeper pick. It all kind of is gonna ride on what Drew Lock does, but we talked about I like some of the moves that they've made this offseason. The Melvin Gordon one, I'm a little iffy on. I'm going to root for him wholeheartedly. I hope it pans out. I hope he proves everyone wrong. But outside of that, I've liked a lot of the signings that we've made, and we have a decent defense, and we've got some weapons around Drew Lock, and we still have, I think, 11 draft picks coming up in the draft. So
a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm going to pick my boys. They're going to go out, hopefully be that 7th wild card team this year.
Drew Lock is going to dance his way to the playoffs.
Going to dance his way to the playoffs.
Yeah. I was gonna be a homer as well. Atlanta's got a great offense. I think they've got every single projected starter now was a first-round pick, which doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but it means that they have some form of talent.
They think they have enough SEC players to make a difference now,
Yeah. No, but the only issue I have with picking Atlanta as a sleeper team is I don't know how that defense is going to be. Maybe if the injury bug doesn't bite us as hard this year, I think that we could definitely become that 7th seed.
Neal should be back this year. I mean, you got your middle. What's his big middle? Deion Jones should be healthy again. I mean, it shouldn't be terrible.
No, like I said, as long as we have a decent defense and an offense that can actually produce, which we didn't have either last year, we'll be decent. No, absolutely not.
I mean, unless Todd Gurley looks like he's not healthy, but I mean,
right. But apparently, I've heard rumors that we're getting the old Gurley, whatever that means.
Should be getting a hungry Gurley on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so
I think there's hope in Atlanta again. So we'll just have to wait and see.
So those are the pre-draft sleepers. So what about your pre-draft Super Bowl favorite? On record right now, who would you pick to win the Super Bowl?
I got to go with Kansas City. They haven't really lost a whole lot. Patrick Mahomes is possibly the best gunslinger the league's seen ever. I like their system. You got to love Andy Reid. And I really don't think in the AFC the way it is right now, there's not a for sure challenger yet, at least in my mind. Maybe Baltimore, but we'll have to see.
For me to provide a different perspective, I mean, if I had to put money on somebody, I'd probably pick Patrick Mahomes too. It's kind of an easy way to go. But being a Saints fan, it's kind of hard to support your team and buy in because of all the heartbreak going. But really, for me, it's really just a toss-up on the Saints and the Niners, wherever they look. Because I know that the Niners have made some moves on the defensive line and everything. It might be a little different, but it's kind of hard to argue against Kyle Shanahan and the weapons they have on the team. See what they draft, But Niners are a machine.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, I don't know. For me, it depends on how the divisions play out. If Seattle could be kind of strong and be difficult and everything. Like this year, to me, it really came down to who had the home field advantage or had the first round bye, which that New Orleans and San Francisco game kind of decided that, or was a big part of it. So I'd probably go with the Niners as my lock-it-in Super Bowl pick right now, but I think it's going to be way up in the air between a couple of teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think out of the two conferences, I think NFC is going to be the more competitive conference this year.
From top to bottom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go my pre-draft Super Bowl favorite. I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. Actually, I'm going to pick Lamar.
That was the other one.
I think that, I think we're sleeping a little bit now. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but I think we're forgetting that the Ravens were the number one seed. The Ravens were the ones beating everyone by 20. I like Lamar Jackson another year. They didn't lose their offensive coordinator somehow. So another year in that offense. They still have weapons. They have some draft picks to be able to go out there, maybe put some more another wide receiver, maybe a slot receiver around him, and then that defense. They brought back Jimmy Smith. We talked about that earlier. I really like that signing, and then Calais Campbell. You bring him in, and so I think the Ravens. Watch out for them. This could be the year. We haven't really seen him perform in the playoffs yet, but I have to imagine with Harbaugh's track record that that's going to change soon. So I'm going to pick this year to be the year that it changes.
I think you make a good point. I mean, I think a lot of that playoff against the Titans where they lost, I think a lot of it was the Titans just being on a hot streak and the Ravens not exactly showing up from the start. But Lamar actually played really well in that game towards the end of it, and I mean, it made a lot of throws, one just his legs. So I mean, I don't think Lamar Jackson is the problem. I think it's really just execution is all they have to worry about.
Yeah,
and of course Patrick Mahomes. So
yeah, they still have to go through Mahomes, but I don't want to pick the Chiefs. I like the Ravens overall more as a team. It's going to be tough for anyone. I think we could be looking at the next Brady as far as every year the AFC Championship game. You got to go through Kansas City, so it'll definitely be interesting.
But also the Chiefs don't have the money to keep all the big players. They kept Chris Jones, but Fuller's gone pretty sure. And
yeah,
it's going to be tough for them to keep together a good defense.
They lost Reggie Ragland.
Yeah,
it's not. They're not going to be a defensive team. It's definitely going to be all in their offense. So
the Chiefs are the most different one. Like the Niners, the Saints, and the Ravens, and possibly another team I'm not thinking of, are all around stacked, talented teams that all they have to do is put it together and well, not all they have to do, but their challenge is putting it together and performing. The Chiefs are they just have a couple weapons and solid players all around, like a good tackle and like one really good tackle, and then Patrick Mahomes, and he's just kind of their wild card, So it's kind of weird.
But all right, so pre-draft Super Bowl favorites in. So we'll have to come. Well, after the Super Bowl, we'll check back and see how that went. But let's move on from the NFL now. I know that's pretty much the big thing in sports now. But how about some college basketball? Yesterday and today would have been the Sweet 16 games. Tomorrow. Or apologize. Today's Saturday. Today's Saturday, so today's Elite Eight. Today would have been the Elite Eight. Yesterday, Thursday and Friday would have been the Sweet 16. And today would have been the Elite Eight.
This upcoming weekend would have been the Final Four in Atlanta.
Yeah, and so it's just crazy. I can't. This is the first time think since 1935 there's no tournament, and so I've been a little lost on what not to do.
There was a couple of years in World War II that there wasn't one either, but I may be wrong.
So
that's a whole different time.
Well, I mean, you said 35, but it's not unprecedented, but it's very rare.
So, who do you think would have won it all? Whose player are we missing out on right now? Like I said, today would have been Elite Eight. Like, who are we missing? Who would have been there?
In terms of sleeper, one team that I really heard being talked about was Dayton of all teams. Which the only reason intrigues me is Anthony Grant used to be head coach at Alabama, and he just could never get it going at a school that would literally have given him almost any resource minus a new stadium, which is a whole nother debate. But Dayton is now all of a sudden good. So my question, being an Alabama fan, is it us? Like why is he succeeding at Dayton and not somewhere that has a much larger athletic budget? So he's apparently done a very good job. I think he just won AP Coach of the Year. So congrats to Anthony Grant. We're glad he's being successful. It just didn't work out for us, obviously. But they could have very easily, from what I understand, get to at least the Sweet 16.
Leave it to the Alabama fan to make a sleeper pick come back to them. What are you thinking, Joe?
Oh, absolutely.
What about some teams that you know?
Joseph is.
Oh, gotcha. All right, we'll just edit that part out.
Yeah. He's coming back from the restroom. Anyway, in terms of overall, I think either Kansas or Kentucky. Based on what I saw, pretty limited. But from what I saw and from what I heard, during the season, either Kansas or Kentucky were built for at least a deep run. In terms of who wins the championship, nobody really knows because March Madness is called March Madness for a reason. Anyway, I'll hand it off to Joe now.
Still a little bit.
All right, so
I'm
team.
not.
Go ahead.
So I'm just gonna say I didn't really keep up super big with every team this year in college basketball. Florida started off supposed to be a good team, kind of fell off, kind of killed it for me. But I did follow a lot of Florida State, and because Ben goes there, of course, and I saw a game. So I was kind of watching them the whole year. They've been a really good team, and it was really the only thing I can have to put in is just how crazy it is to gotta be for all those kids and those programs to get so far in the year, and pretty much they're one of the only leagues that their whole season was pretty much done, and this is pretty much the playoffs for them. And it's such a how crazy those March Madness has gone,
Yeah.
All the money that goes into March Madness and everything, it's such a big tournament.
And let me say something about FSU. For a team to go from just 2 or 3 years ago, kind of just being in the middle, to now being almost a national powerhouse. What a great job y'all's head coach has done there.
ACC champs.
ACC champs, first ever.
Win it the way,
First ever ACC regular season champs. And if you want to see the celebration, you can head over to our YouTube page and check that out.
Yeah. I mean, I know they won the tournament technically, and that's not how they wanted to win it. But, congratulations to them. They did a great job. Couldn't have happened to a better guy from what I understand. Your head coach is a great guy.
He's got a great system.
Absolutely. And, it was nice not seeing, the typical ACC Blue Bloods in North Carolina or Duke. I know they're down, and that's not necessarily a good thing for the sport.
I've always liked Duke, but it definitely is nice to see Duke not be number one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
They had their Zion Williamson, take a break.
And they couldn't even win the national title.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. For me, I look at, I love FSU, and I definitely think that this was a FSU could have done some damage in the tournament. We're coming off the Elite Eight, Sweet 16. The length of our team, the athleticism, the defense usually gives teams trouble in tournament style play. So definitely a team that I was looking forward to watching for multiple reasons. But some other sleepers I have, I think a lot of people were really sleeping on Michigan State towards the end of the year. They were number one early on. A lot of people forget that, and then they kind of fell off hard. Cassius Winston, their best player, his brother died. I know that was hard on the team,
Yeah.
and so, but they were looking, they were looking really good going into the tournament. Especially the Big Ten tournament. I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd come out with it. So I think they were a sleeper team. Another sleeper team that I think a lot of people are sleeping on is UVA out of the ACC. We talked about reigning national championships, and the year started a little slow. They lost 3 players to the draft. But they won 8 straight going into the ACC tournament. Their defense was playing well. They beat FSU. A lot of people forget about that. They beat Louisville to finish the season. And that defense is just always good. Again, we talk about part of the reason FSU does well in the tournament is because of defense. And I think Virginia definitely could have lost because their offense was stagnant, but they definitely had the defense to make a run and definitely surprise a few teams. But then, if I had to pick one team, the team that I think we'd be watching that would just be kind of putting everyone else away is Kansas. It would have been really hard towards the end of the year. You watch how they play to bet against them. So, I think we kind of missed out on seeing what Kansas would have been able to do.
Which is pretty crazy to me because mid-season with that big fight and your suspended players and stuff, all that's going on, I honestly marked Kansas out in my head. I'm thinking, there's no way you lose that, a player all year and suspend these players and come back from that. Like I didn't. And then the run they were on was insane.
Yeah, no, they definitely,
Well, that's
a shout out to Bill Self for his coaching. It's definitely gonna be interesting to see. We're still kind of dealing with some of the fallout from that Adidas scandal. And I know Kansas has been wrapped up in that. Bill Self has been wrapped up in that. So, it's kind of hard to really congratulate Bill Self on what he did this season, but definitely a good coaching job to be able to come back from that fight,
absolutely.
and everything, because that definitely could have been one of those where you see a good team, they lose a player, they get too hyped up in a moment like that, and the rest of the season kind of disappoints. But yeah, no, I definitely would think I'd be picking Kansas to win it all. Um, so, we'll never know what's going to happen this year, but, the one thing that, we can talk about that eventually will come to tuition is next year. So, what are you guys' thoughts on next season? Any teams you got as your favorites?
In terms of favorites for like winning it all and stuff, it's way too early. We don't know, especially with eligibility up in the air for winter sports. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if certain seniors are coming back. We don't know who's all declared for the draft yet. We don't know anything.
In the
really
extended eligibility, right?
Right, that's what I was saying. We don't know if any of these extended eligibility players that were seniors or might going to declare for the draft this year might come back. We don't know the full picture yet. We'll know more probably by July on what the college basketball season is really going to look like, and especially by August. But it's way too early for a favorite. Obviously, I'd probably pick one of the Blue Bloods just because they're always going to be there. But for me, I don't really have a favorite.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I don't think that the seniors for basketball are going to get another year of eligibility. They still played the full season.
I don't either.
It would be nice, but I doubt it's going to happen. But Villanova. So Villanova, that's who ESPN has as their number one going into next year. They've got Creighton as number two. But I could definitely see Villanova. They're bringing a lot of talent back. My favorite going into next year, I think a team to watch is going to be, I just brought them up as a sleeper for this year, is Virginia, UVA. They're bringing in, well, first of all, so they're going to lose 2 starters, but they're bringing 3 starters back, including Clark, who was a big catalyst for the run at the end of the year, a lot of game-winning shots, but they're bringing in ESPN 100 wing Abdul Rahim, who has been described as one of the best pure scorers in the 2020 class. So he'll be someone exciting to watch. But they're also going to be bringing Sam Hauser, who transferred last year from Marquette, who averaged almost 15 points a game there in Marquette, and he's going to be eligible to play this year. So their offense this year, was a little down. I think with those 2 guys coming in, you could see their offense go back up again next year. And just Bennett is a great coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the entire country. The defense always plays hard. And I think watch out for Virginia. And I think another team in the ACC to watch out for, you brought up the Blue Bloods, I apologize, UNC. They've got 3 5-stars coming in, a great recruiting class. And they still have talent that was there this year. They just had a lot of injuries. And, I don't think North Carolina's going to be bad 2 years in a row. So definitely you can watch out for some of those teams.
Yeah, if I had to give my 2 cents, I haven't really caught up much in the recruiting, but I think the teams that are like kind of down this year and are reloading, like Villanova has had a great run. Even this year they're still in the conversation with the kind of like I don't want to say lack of talent, but with losing big players. I think Villanova could be something to look out for, and North Carolina's getting a lot of recruits. I mean, they had an off year, but Roy Williams haven't played good basketball.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
of course, Florida Gators are going to win the national championship.
Florida Gators. The Gators will be interesting. They're going to lose a few players this year. Blackshear will be gone. It was supposed to be a big addition. A couple players leaving early for the draft. So the entire state of Florida is going to be interesting to watch. FSU, both Patrick Williams and Devin Vassell declared for the draft. Obviously, both of them can still come back if they don't like their prospects. But, there's some good recruits coming in. You still have transfers. And the team, Leonard Hamilton finds players every year. But it'll be interesting to see how the state of Florida deals with it. So.
Yeah. Alabama's still in the same boat.
us SEC basketball.
Yeah, I know. Our biggest issue is we just changed regimes again last year, and now we just now got a new 5-star recruit, guy named Josh Primo out of Canada. So we're just gonna have to see how that fits into Nate Oates' system. I really like Nate. He's a great guy. He plays fast, and I think he relates a little bit better to the college game than Avery Johnson did. But Alabama's just one of the schools that I think we're always going to be at most mediocre because of our reliance on football as our main sport. I mean, if you go up to Tuscaloosa, everything is geared towards the football team. I mean, some people don't even know we have a basketball team. So as long as that culture is in Tuscaloosa, it will be for probably forever, at least as long as the sport of football exists. Alabama basketball will be no better than mediocre. Maybe they'll surprise us every now and then and make that weird 2004 Elite Eight run again, but I don't think we're going to be in the national conversation anytime soon.
See, kind of on that note, same thing with mine with being a Florida fan. The kind of main concern is like our recruits have been there for sure, and we should have been having better years. And with Billy Donovan, I think we took less talented teams almost. And I don't want to say the championship runs, but like that one year we had Chioza and Patrick Young and the other couple guys that were like all good players, but none of them were drafted. But now we have these young prospects and everything, and you watch them play. I don't know much about Mark White, and like I know he's a pretty good recruiter and everything. But when you watch them play, it's like there's really no system there. We're just four guys, a bunch of people on the perimeter, and we just kind of pass the ball until someone gets a three off. It just really hasn't been great basketball in my opinion. Besides like a couple of key players like Chioza in the last couple of years, but it's going to be interesting for sure. I think this might be a make or break year for him after this disappointing year this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's gonna be interesting college basketball as a whole. We didn't get to see any like of the finishes in the tournament. No, there's no momentum really going in now to the next season. So it's gonna be weird. It's gonna definitely be different. But that's kind of just where we're at with coronavirus. Anyways, I think
Pretty much any spring sport.
everything's just gonna be different next year, and so. I think
like the scheduling and everything is honestly underreported. I mean, like how crazy is it going to be? I mean, does every major sport right now just push back their season for the next 3 or 4 years? I mean, you can't just skip the off season.
No, teams aren't gonna. They're not gonna do that. The only sport that could realistically push back their season is the NBA. But the NBA is only gonna push it back so far because the NBA is not gonna compete with the NFL, especially when you're talking playoff times.
NFL is like we're not supposed to push anything back. You're coming into our time. Like
right.
we're the number one.
Well, I mean, we don't know what the coronavirus is going to be a day from now, much less in August when NFL preseason activity starts. So I mean, the NFL has no reason to push back stuff.
I definitely think the March Madness, like the NCAA basketball took a bigger hit than the NBA did for sure. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But I think, like for a lot of maybe not in the East so much, but in the West, I mean, there's 4 teams competing for an 8 seed, and you can't just say, all right, we're going to go with the playoffs and just. I think the only way you can do it is having maybe a double elimination, like a little play-in tournament with the last 3 teams or something like that.
But you absolutely
say,
can.
Right,
you absolutely can say. Season's ending right now, and we're going to the playoffs, and that would just be how it is. I mean, there's been shortened seasons before.
With like a 2-game break with like 20 games left to play. I mean, that's just ridiculous, though.
Yeah. Well, here's
none of those 8 teams are going to lose anyway. But
right. Well, here's the thing: we're living in unprecedented times. We've got to do unprecedented things. The NFL had a strike-shortened season in which they did a one-off, 12-team playoff or something like that.
I mean,
yeah, it was very interesting. I forget exactly when it was, but it's not unprecedented for the fact that they would change the structure temporarily. I think if any commissioner could do it, it is Adam Silver. He's probably the most dynamic of the commissioners right now.
He's been a great commissioner.
Right, like I said, if any commissioner can change something, it'd probably be Adam Silver, and that's just the way his sport is set up.
Manfred should be taking notes from Adam Silver.
Rob Manfred is doing the best he can with what he has.
Well,
it's a completely different league.
That's what's being. He should.
That's a completely different issue. I know.
Hot takes.
Yeah, hot takes. Yeah, really. Hey, the only team benefiting and the only person that's benefiting from this stoppage is Jose Altuve and the Astros.
Oh, for sure.
None of their players are getting beanballed right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just think,
I think the over-under was, what, like 85?
you know,
Oh, it's huge.
a lot of
Yeah.
the leagues, both MLB and NFL, have already agreed with players on what a shortened season would look like. I know the NBA is working towards something like that. But there's absolutely the chance that the NBA doesn't play a regular season. But like I said, if any team can move back, it would be or any season could move back, it would be the NBA. Just because there's more flexibility because there's nothing really going on in August and September. You know, you've got the start of college football, but if they needed to push back to right at the beginning of that, they could handle it. Um,
Minus
but
the opening
if this
weekend of
is
college
still
football, the NBA would be bigger.
if this is still going on in June or July, and let's say July is the earliest they can start the season, you're not gonna have maybe you have time for 5 or 6 more regular season games, but the NBA is the NBA can't afford to have its finals during football season. They lose so much money, so many viewers. So at some point you're just gonna have to, you know, make it is what it is. I know like the MLB, they're talking about playing double headers or just shortened seasons. So, you know, it's going to be interesting, but there's definitely a chance, I think, that the NBA doesn't play the rest of the regular season. Well, anyway, so, you know, we're kind of running out of time now. I think that's a good place to end is because we don't really know what else is going to go on, so we could talk about that topic a little bit longer, and we wouldn't really get anywhere because we don't know anything. So, um, we just kind of want to thank everyone so far for tuning in our first podcast, and we hope to do this a lot more. In the end, we're just three friends that have got together, and we talk about sports all the time. And so here we are, we get to talk about sports and share our opinions with other people. So, you know, our hope is that you like some of our opinions, you know, chime in, comment, do all that. And but you know, thanks for tuning into this first one. Thanks for watching. You know, we hope you come back and you keep watching. But you know, really all this is if it doesn't go anywhere, is just a couple friends who are sitting here having a conversation about sports. So you guys have anything you want to
Yeah.
add on that before we get out of here for the day?
We kind of missed half of that due to technical difficulties, but we fixed it. Anyway, I assume you were just concluding. So yeah, from all of us, if you do end up listening, we appreciate it. Like Ben said, it is just the three of us talking sports. If it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't, great. We're just doing it for fun. I think Joseph has the same idea.
I think the biggest thing that if anybody does tune in is just we're open to doing different types of content. I know I do a lot of games. There's different stuff we like to talk about. If there's something you like to hear talks about and you want to hear our opinions, just comments are really the best thing you can do.
Yeah, smash that like button, hit that bell, whatever the other
You don't have to
cliche,
hit the bell. We're not that good.
whatever the
Yeah.
cliches
And
are
if-
that YouTubers and everything else say.
And if you get ahead of the curve there, we have I think 5 subscribers on our YouTube channel right now. So chances are, if you comment on something, it's actually going to happen because you'll be the first one to do it. So yeah, definitely.
Grow with us.
So
Grow with it. Yeah.
but thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments below and stay safe, stay quarantined, and have a wonderful day.